Welcome back to Home in the Earth. Let's start with another look at the computer model of the steel and concrete parts of this build. If you've been following, you've already seen this garage go up, adding the waterproofing and all that stuff. We've also already got this bedroom wing structure in and waterproofed, etc. There have been a few changes, such as dropping this skylight tower. We also changed the way we retained the earth in this section to a more natural rock wall. And we made this door an 8-foot door instead of a 7-foot. We changed this step footing, etc. Looking ahead, we will eventually be putting up these concrete radial vaults. They'll span between these concrete ribs that we've already set up. We're calling this structure the mezzanine because it's kind of an in-between floor. And this is the storm room, which we're also talking about dropping from the plans if things go too slow next summer. This is the concrete sunshade that will hold up the dirt that spills from between those front vaults. Give us that look of the dirt sloping down like these vaults are dormers. This apse will be my office, and not shown is a retaining wall around it to control the earth spilling off of it. Let's clear away these vaults and the south wall so we can look inside. Oh yeah, I roughly modeled the kitchen in here. This is the tower, also planned for next summer. I'm really looking forward to doing these arches and these round window vents. Turning it off, along with the storm room and the mezzanine, let's clear these stairs, clear the kitchen out, remove the office. No time for any of that this season. In the little warm weather we have left, I want to get that back wall of the kitchen and the dining rooms, and also this outer wall of the guest room, so I can put the roof on the mudroom. This little span between the guest room section and the main circle isn't there yet, and we can't actually add it until we get these vertical walls or it'll be in the way of the Shotcrete crew. So for now I'll hide those. I'll also remove the skylight that we don't actually plan to do anymore. Oops, I won't need those guest beds for quite a while. So basically, during the rest of October, we want to set up the formwork for the perimeter of this circle and this little playroom apse. The kitchen and dining room on this side, playroom walls on this side. We'll also form the apse dome, along with its walls and this parapet and this top little bit as well. Obviously, we've got a long way to go before this is habitable, but you can see that we will have come a long way this summer. Since these walls have only got simple curvature, we're going to try the particle board forming method instead of using the lath. Hopefully this is much easier because the boards won't need to be tied to the rebar. These vertical studs were already protruding up from the basement, so we're going to continue using them. First we position these window bucks, and then we shape the insert rebar into the holes in the studs. We add the vertical rebar and tie. All pretty straightforward, so I sped it up to 1600 times normal speed. The next evening my friend Aaron came by after work to help me with positioning the boards. He's my only friend with any real construction experience. A few days later my parents were in town to help out again. Mostly it was pretty straightforward. The only tricky bits were cutting holes in the studs near the top because it didn't come with holes up there for the rebar to go through. And then adding strips to strengthen the seams between the boards. We used self-tapping metal screws to attach the boards directly to the steel studs. The kitchen wall was a little different because we didn't have any pre-existing studs there, so we could learn from our earlier experience. We decided to use some studs anyway, but to spread them as far out as possible. I figured the bare minimum was 3 studs per 8-foot sheet of board, so I could create those curves. Then I just had to get them all plumb and braced. I guess Aaron came back again. Another day and we're still cranking on those kitchen and dining room wall forms. We also decided to include that little side wall. It helps with the stability of the dining room wall, and it wasn't much extra work. These curved walls reach up into those radial vaults, so I had to trim them with the correct radius. On the back side you can see the curved rebar being slid in through those cutouts in the studs. Another Saturday and Hunter and I got started on the playroom apse. All these north-facing windows were a late addition to the plan since this wall was originally going to be buried. But with that view, we just had to open it up. Structurally, this apse is the same curved steel tubing that we used in the bedroom, welded together, covered in rebar, etc. The tricky part was getting everything set up correctly and attached to the surrounding concrete and steel. Getting that middle window attached also took some doing. Then Sherry and I turned our attention to the other walls on this side. This pile of steel studs and other supplies were really in the way and needed to be removed. I left the clip in just because it shows the reality of working around a construction site. It's not all progress. Sometimes it's just moving stuff from one pile to another. Once clear, we could roll the scaffolding over and start working on those higher boards. Another day, and we're surfacing these apse walls. The last of the particle board went up, and I stiffened the corners with an extra layer of board. Then it was time to focus on the apse roof. This was done very similarly to the bedroom apse, starting with curved horizontal rebar welded in place. I got a lot of comments on the previous video about how it's against code to weld rebar. Well, it is true that welding rebar does reduce its ductility, etc. If you actually read the code, you'll see that it specifies how and when you can weld rebar. In some situations you can't weld it, and in others you can. I'm following all the rules here, and I passed the inspections without a problem. I'll put info about that on the website. After getting the vertical rebar in, it was time to add the horizontal. I'm getting pretty expert at curving any radius I want by hand, so these went pretty quickly. There's also an outer parapet wall to reinforce. And then Sherry added screen and lath, but the camera died. Lastly, we just had to add the ENT electrical conduit, for which we had a separate rough electrical inspection. After passing all the inspections, we're ready for Shotcrete. That'll be the next video.